Hello, and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. I'm a psychological astrologer and clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Anna Parkinson. Hello, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
It's a very odd thing when we have the same name, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I am reading your book, Beyond Sex and Soup, and I'm really enjoying it because you've written it in a very simple and personal way, and it makes it very easy to follow, easy to read. So I guess perhaps you want to tell us what the book is about.
I think that ever since I began healing, I've wanted to not exactly demystify the process, because it is mystical how it works and why it works. But I think I've been so amazed at the capacities that human beings have to operate in ways that we might not rationally know about, that I've always wanted to bring it home, as it were, bring it back to ordinary experience. It's not something where you escape into a world of healing. It's another dimension that you incorporate in your life. So Beyond Sex and Soup was about that, really. It was about all the things that happen to us in our normal lives. You know, people we love get sick. We get angry with people we love. We may be jealous. We may be full of fear. We may be full of anxiety. And being spiritual is not another chapter, a different dimension. It is part of your life that is happening to you. So I've written about all those experiences that we have and ways in which we can use them actually to be stronger and happier and make our life more harmonious. That was the idea.
It's so important, isn't it? Because I'm sure that we all go through periods where we feel hopeless, and because we can't see a way out. And sometimes it's because it's been going on for so long. I often have clients who they kind of come half-heartedly. And the reason they come half-heartedly is because they're on the verge of giving up on believing that anyone could ever help them. They've had all sorts of therapies. They've, it's been years, and they just, it's like their last little ray of hope is about to go out unless something happens. So it's a very important thing, isn't it, to remember that life happens and we have to find our strength within it.
Yeah, I really think that's true. I think that one of the things is that it's a very small step from being overwhelmed by all the things that happen to you to finding your power in relation to all those things. It feels like an enormous step, but actually it can happen in the flick of a switch, in an instant. A sudden realization that that you're not a passive instrument in either the good things or the bad things that happen to you, that you do actually play a part and you do have power. And it's when you learn how to use that power, and that's what my work is about. Well, either it's about healing somebody, in which case they are passive, but I do a lot of teaching and writing in order to empower people to take up their own reins, if you like, take up their power. And I think that you don't need to believe anything, you don't need to know anything, you just need to try it. And you begin to discover your own internal wisdom, that your body has enormous wisdom, that your body has a memory, that it's a teacher. And even starting from that, you can go such a long way. So in Beyond Sex and Soup. So I've called it Beyond Sex and Soup because it is grafted in actual life, and we do need those things. But I've looked at areas of experience that have to do with different areas of our energy. So from the very fundamental area of being secure in our root energy, to the one that so many people aspire to when they think of spirituality, which is the crown energy, which is God, which is something out there that lifts you out of your life. And actually, my experience is that it is sometimes the hardest one to accept, because it's quite it involves humility. I mean, real openness.
It's everyone wants that crown energy, as you put it, because what they're seeking is to escape. And the root energy is all about grounding. And when you're in the height of pain or anxiety, you want escape. You don't want grounding.
That's a really interesting point, because the thing is that, and I completely understand what you say about people coming sort of half-heartedly. Your pain is actually really helpful to you. Your fear is actually really helpful to you, but it can't help you, neither your pain nor your fear, unless you face it and embrace it. And that doesn't mean that you stay with it. It's just that we can't escape the dark part of life, because just by very virtue of living, you're going to die. And everything that you love is going to die at some point. Creation, the other side of creation is death. And that's dark and painful.
So tell us about how you came to your journey as a healer. How did you find that path?
Well, I was ill. That's how I came to it. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor quite a long time ago now, 20 years ago now. And that was so scary because of what they proposed as treatment. They were going to take the top of my head off and kind of go in under my brain and take it out like that. And I kind of, well, I wouldn't say that I blanked it out, but my first decision was, okay, if I'm going to go blind or die, I'm not going to finish the book that I was writing first. And I lived with that for a while the kind of medical system sorted out confusion after confusion, or maybe it was my confusion, I don't know. But eventually what happened was that this tumor proved to be inoperable, and then they just said they were going to wait and see. So I was extremely lucky, although of course now I've done quite a lot of healing and I begin to see that these things are not completely accidental. But in that I knew nothing about healing. I was a complete skeptic. If they had said, not deliberately, but I just knew nothing about it. If they had said, you know, on this date, come in, we need to do this operation, I would have just made a date in my diary and gone in. But waiting to see gave me time to think about what it was, what they were doing, what I was doing. And I found that I was listening to myself. When you're very emotionally agitated, you talk to yourself a lot. And finally, I just listened. And what I was saying was, this may be just a case to you, Mr. Doctor, but it's my head and it's really important to me. And I just heard myself say, it's my head. And I knew that that meant I had to do something about it. And I began to look. I looked at every alternative I could think of. And I noticed that healing had an effect. It wasn't always an effect that I liked, but I noticed, and I thought that was very extraordinary, that somebody without physically touching me could make me feel physically different. And eventually I met a healer who, Martin Brothman, who was an American healer, and what he did was a healing, but he also explained to me what it was that he'd seen in my unconscious energy and what he'd shifted. And that made all the difference to me, because I recognized it. And it was like my conscious mind was able to grasp what my unconscious was telling me, and therefore telling him, because I realized that if I hadn't been carrying this stuff around, he wouldn't have been able to see it. In my normal waking state, I thought that all this stuff was to do with babies. It's not important in my life anymore. And I had no conscious focus on it at all. It was like old emotional rubbish. But it made so much sense. It was like all the pieces of the jigsaw suddenly fell into place. And I realized that this was a language that was parallel, exactly parallel to my life, but not quite the same as the way I'd looked at my life. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever learned. So I was, at that time, I was a BBC producer. And I thought, but this is the most extraordinary thing I've ever come across. This is a different kind of knowledge. And I began to learn how to heal. And I worked on myself, and eventually the tumor disappeared. I was healing other people by this time. And I wrote a book about that process that I'd been going through, which was Change Your Mind, Heal Your Body. Because I wanted people to understand that it wasn't necessarily an instant miracle. You know, it wasn't like I saw a healer and da-da, it was all done, it was gone. I mean, I believe that does happen for some people, but I had many, many layers that needed chiseling through, and it didn't happen for me. But I did get through the layers, and I know now that healing works in its own, at its own pace, and it does work.
I do feel quite strongly that we have to participate in our healing.
Absolutely.
It's not, somebody can't just clear that for you. And I think one of the problems we have with allopathic medicine, apart from the fact that it treats the symptom and not the cause, is the fact that the most you have to do potentially is take a pill, and maybe you might get some dietary advice or some exercise advice, and that's it. And that's just not enough, because it's one part of it. And even then, people are often half-hearted about doing the required prescription of diet or exercise because they don't feel as engaged with the healing process. And yet it's really a very important part, because it's about also, apart from anything else, it's your intention to heal.
Yes, but I think that we don't give people credit for the power they have. And it's, I actually, I know that medics do everything they can to heal people. And one of the difficulties in the UK is that we have this wonderful free medical system. And we've come to believe that it sorts us out. And everything in life has the other side of the coin. And that's it. Ironically, the first symptom of this brain tumor I had was double vision. And as I was going through my healing process, I was constantly uncovering these paradoxes. You know, what appeared to be one way was also the other way. And it was in that tiny little space where those two things were balanced that there was a way through. And that's very much what I've tried to describe in Beyond Sex and Soup, how the paradox of your pain is also the point of your power. The paradox of your fear is also the direction that you have to go in. And it's painful, it's difficult, or it feels difficult, but it's so liberating to face those difficulties. And if you can do that either by yourself or with the assistance of a healer, then it is hugely empowering. And you are meant to have that power. You are born entitled to the power of your amazing body and your amazing mind. And we give it up too easily.
Exactly. And that's the thing, isn't it? As you say, we've got in our culture used to looking to others to do the healing for us. And we have to set that intention that we are going to heal, but we have to be engaged in it. We have to ask questions. We have to research. We have to find all the different avenues available to us. And we have to understand the mind-body connection too. And that's the thing, because we have got the ability to heal. Our bodies come equipped with an immune system. That immune system needs to be nurtured, cared for, so that it does its job. And so sometimes it needs a little bit of help here and there. Everything that we do sometimes needs a little bit of help here and there, but we have to be involved. We have to be engaged. And as you put it so beautifully, we have that within us. It's at a physical level, it's our immune system, but it's also there at another level, at a soul level, at an emotional level. It's there at many, many levels. And so it's a very beautiful thing. Tell us a little bit about the healing work that you do. How does it work?
Well, basically, your body has a language. So every human body speaks the same language. And your body doesn't make a distinction between physical reality and non-physical reality. And if it did, it really wouldn't be able to work any better than a machine. But it works much better than a machine because it can incorporate two realities at once. And so what presents as a physical symptom is speaking a language that's universal to human bodies of an emotional content that you have been carrying around with you. So in a way, when I start healing, I very often tell somebody what their body is saying to me, because when your conscious mind becomes aware of what you've been carrying unconsciously, and you will recognize it. It's not like I tell you and therefore you have to take that message away. It's like, yeah, I know that. How do you know that, sort of thing? And when your conscious mind recognizes that, that's the first step of you becoming the captain of your ship or the boss of your office or whatever, however you like to put it, because ultimately your conscious mind is in charge. And even though I then proceed to do a healing, what I then proceed to do is to look at the energy and the way it expresses itself to me inside your body and shift what I perceive as a block. And some people feel that very, very strongly, and some people feel it later, and some people hardly feel it at all. But as I said to you earlier, I've learned to trust the healing. And then, I guess I think all healing is pretty much the same thing in a different language. But I think what I then do with people is I talk to them about what I've seen and shifted. Because although everybody speaks the same language, every human body speaks the same language, the reasons why you got to the place you are unique to you. Nobody else has your story on the planet. And that is something much deeper that you need to be aware of, again, in order to put yourself in charge and to be able to make those decisions of, I really don't need to carry that stuff around anymore. or, you know, yes, it breaks my heart. And that's why X and Y also break my heart. But, you know, now that I know that, I don't need to pretend it doesn't break my heart. So that business of I say to people, what I say to you is not the healing. The healing is a different process that I've learned to trust. It just happens, and it happens at the right time in the right way, and it takes its own. It's almost like engaging you with the power and life of death, power of life and death that you're born with, and I just facilitate that. I don't say that I give it, I facilitate it. But then when I talk to people, that is a different thing. I'm saying this is my interpretation of what I see, and it gives people some substance to work on, to deal with, and it lends clarity to dreams and all the other apparently inexplicable things that happen in life. So that's really how it works.
Do you have to have the person there physically with you?
No, this was a bit of a revelation to me. And actually, it's one of the healings that I write about in Beyond Sex and Soup, that one day I was, I guess I'd been healing for about, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And then somebody phoned from Mumbai and said, can you give me a healing? And I thought, are you sure? In fact, I said, are you sure? I said, look, why don't you just go around the corner and see if you can find somebody to heal you? Because a lot of the maps of energy that I use are from Indian culture. There must be somebody who can do this for you. And he went away for a little while and came back a few days later, said, no, I really want you to do it. So at that stage, I was very overwhelmed by it. I thought, oh, what? But I thought nothing really happens that you're not ready for. Again, it's the way in which you, as you explore those dimensions of your life, you begin to feel that it's happening on a level that is beyond your understanding, really, that you will slowly understand. So I did the healing, and it was very, somewhat to my surprise, it was, you know, he could have been sitting in the room, and what he wanted to heal actually manifests itself, you know. And now I'm very comfortable with remote healing. So I do healing with people all over the world. But, and of course, what I realized, and I was stupid of me not to realize it before, healing happens in that part of ourselves which is not related to physical time and space. And one of the miracles of being a human being is that you incorporate in every cell in your body the rules of quantum mechanics, which are completely different from the rules of physical mechanics. So your senses are attuned to physical mechanics. And again, this is something that I explain in Beyond Sex and Soup. It is amazing that these two things cannot be knitted together by any scientist on the planet. And yet you are living them all matter is living them every second of every day. As a human being, you have the capacity to engage with things, with energy that is outside the rules of time and space, so that you can actually connect with someone you've never met thousands of miles away. And I teach people to do this as well as doing it myself. And, you know, it's amazing to discover this capacity in yourself.
It stands to reason that if you are working at an energy level, then location is immaterial. And I have discovered this for myself, being part of 2 mediumship groups. And you know, this is, I think, perhaps in my mind, the only gift of lockdown is that we've discovered that we can do this, irrespective of presence. And obviously there is something very, very nice about physical presence as well, but it's not always practical. And so to be able to work remotely is a gift. So and it's also, I think the biggest gift about it is not just the fact that we can do it, it's that it's showing us the reality of that other reality.
Exactly.
That it's beyond, as you put it, time and space. And therefore it's showing us what we can do at that energy level when we're free from the physical constraints and limitations. And I think that's very exciting. And
it is. And you say when we're free from the physical, we impose those physical constraints. And yet, isn't it extraordinary that it's actually technology that makes it possible for us to go beyond them. And so it's like somebody comes up with a dream. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could really make a machine that flies? And they have a passion for it and they spend all their life and all their money trying to create this thing, and they create it and all of our lives change. And similarly, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we could use a machine to connect with somebody who I'm working with on the other side of the Atlantic, and ditto, 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 and all our lives change. So this, it's in a way that the sort of the macro picture, sometimes very awful and very bloody, like the war in Ukraine, and sometimes very apparently mundane, like technology. It's actually part of that big energetic picture, which is the evolution that we're part of, which we don't really understand. We participate in it, but it does seem to me that the evolution is showing us parts of ourselves that we have not been using for hundreds of years. I think that traditionally it takes us back to the ancient way where you did use it because you needed to, and we have that capacity within ourselves as human beings to use our inner senses. And in Beyond Sex and Soup, I talk a lot about the difference between using your external senses and using your inner senses, and giving yourself space to use those inner senses without sacrificing what you can do by using your external sense. It doesn't mean that you're suddenly not going to be able to walk through a door or sit on a chair. It's just an extra dimension of yourself.
And you're quite right in the sense that this is a rediscovery that was there in our ancient history, and which has continued to exist in shamanic cultures. It's just that we, for various reasons, turned our backs on that and forgot it, and began to become reliant on technology and other things to help us. So we evolved looking out, and the problem with doing that is that we disempowered ourselves and disconnected ourselves from a very important part of us, you know, our very souls. So it's a good thing that we're beginning to rediscover that, and funnily enough, technology has enabled us to learn more about that. So it's, in a sense, hopefully coming full circle and helping us to be more conscious of what we're capable of.
I think so. I think of it as double vision. And very interestingly, a long time ago, and when I was very, very young, I interviewed the Dalai Lama in Ladakh in northern India. And I was working as a young BBC reporter then, and I said I'd get this interview from my network for BBC World Service. And so I asked him a very political question. And I said, so what makes you think that the Tibetan people would want the Dalai Lama back, even if you could go, because they've grown up under Chinese rule and maybe they have different values or whatever. And he kind of nodded in a very Dalai Lama way. And he said, when you are young, he said, you see with one eye and you hear with one ear. And when you grow old, he said, you see with two eyes and you hear with two ears. And at the time I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to put this in my political radio program? And but I did it. But later, when I was writing the first book I wrote about healing, I found this interview again. And of course, at that point, it made complete sense to me that I had discovered my other ear and I discovered my other eye. And these were the internal senses that I needed to balance. And ironically, the very first symptom that I had was double vision. And so in Beyond Sex and Soup, I've tried to explain what it means to have double vision in a good way when you're living your ordinary life.
Well, I think that this is a truly exciting discovery that I hope that most of us, if not all of us, have the opportunity to stumble upon. And I think that your book is a fabulous way to open that door and let the journey and the adventure of discovery begin. And so thank you very much, Anna, for your time today.
Well, thank you, Anna. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the book.
The book that we are discussing is Beyond Sex and Soup, and I will be sure to put a link to that on the description box accompanying the interview. Anna, if people wanted to find you for healing, how could they do that?
The best way is to email me at anna@annaparkinson.com. And if you want to find out a bit more about what I do, then that is the name of my website, annaparkinson.com.
And I'll have a link to that also on the description box. Thank you so much, Anna.
I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you all for watching, and do remember that if you're welcome to make comments. If you want to find out more about my work, you're welcome to do so. And I'll have a link to my websites on there as well. Until next time, have a great week.